Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the third part of Your Property Show. You're joining myself, Hasina Momtaz, as well as Kam Ali, who is a property investor and an expert in property development and management, as well as being a trained accountant and mortgage advisor. So Kam is answering all your questions. The number's on the screen. Please do call through. We're talking about property finance today. However, if you have any questions about property, how to get onto the property ladder, give us a call. And in fact, somebody's done just that. So we've got the next caller. Hello, welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. আমার একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল।
জি জি
জি কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে, is it better to get a fixed rate or tracker mortgage?
Fixed or tracker on investment properties. Okay. First of all, with buy-to-let properties, most people tend to have interest only. So interest only means you just simply pay the interest, and the difference between your rent and the mortgage is your profit. So you use that. But with fixed rate, is you're fixing the mortgage for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You have that security where if rates go up, you're paying the same monthly payment for the foreseeable future for that fixed period. Tracker rate, it's basically goes up with the Bank of England rate. Now, if the Bank of England decides to increase the rate, or the LIBOR rate, it could be tracking the LIBOR rate, then your mortgage could potentially go up by whatever percentage point the Bank of England. But what's happening in most economists, bankers are not predicting any interest rate rises in the foreseeable future, next 2 or 3 years. So whether it's fixed or tracker, I don't think it's going to make much difference in your family budgets or in your property investment property, because not going to be any significant changes, because the predictions are the rates will remain quite low for the next few years. So the answer is not going to make much difference. You have to see which one is your better rate, whether the tracker is giving you, the bank is giving you a good option on tracker or fixed, and speak to the broker at the time, and they will probably help you decide which one to go for.
And I notice sometimes it's individual personalities as well.
Yes.
Some people prefer to know what their mortgage payments will be,
secure,
for
yes.
2 years or 5 years or however long they fix it for. Whereas other people are happy to sort of go with the market.
Take a risk,
take a risk,
and have a lower rate initially, and if it goes up, they'll take a hit. Yeah, so it depends on the individual risks assessment.
And what the current rate is, and what you think it might go up. And that
sometimes, if you're not too sure, the broker can assist you and explain all of that in detail. Say, look, if you want that security, then you go for the fixed. Yeah.
And you mentioned interest and repayment. I mean, I think most people will know what they are, but for some people who may not, we might have younger viewers today.
So with investment properties, it's a lot of the investors tend to go for interest only, because what they believe in is we will sell the property to pay the bank back, and therefore why should we be on repayment? It's more tax advantage to have a interest only. But these days this is all changing from the fifth, so interest is relief is going to be restricted. So there might be a situation where you pay off your mortgage because you're not getting that advantage that you used to through the tax system.
So that would be a repayment mortgage.
So you could switch to a repayment mortgage or overpayment or whatever you decide to. But
is that something you'd recommend with the new changes that people?
It depends on individuals' tax situations. So somebody on a higher rate taxpayer, and if they had surplus money coming in, then it would make sense to be on repayment, because there's no advantage you of having that interest going through, and it could make a big difference there. But if somebody's on low income and they've got rental income, then it's possible they could remain in interest only, and it make sense for them to remain on interest only.
Okay, so we'll, as I said, we're here to take your calls. As we're waiting for the next caller to come through, I had a couple of questions actually that I wanted to ask about people who set up companies. One of the things I wondered, is taking a limited company mortgage more expensive?
Right. More expensive. Traditionally, it was slightly more expensive. The banks, whether it's more administrative work or more risky for them, it was a bit more expensive. But recently what we've seen, there's a lot of new banks that come in and say, we're happy to lend to people with limited companies. In the last year or so, because of the government changes. And they've been very competitive actually. They've been almost the same as an individual buying a buy-to-let and same as whether you buy through limited companies, we're not seeing much difference in these. So I would say there is insignificant difference now between the two, whereas in the past there was a bit more significant change in monthly payments, whatever. But these days there's hardly any difference because of the new traditional banks have opened up to say, yeah, we're happy to lend to limited companies. Let's see who the director is, and it's fine. So.
It sounds like from the things that you're saying as we're sort of progressing through the programme that these changes that are coming in are going to have some kind of significant impact on the market. So in the last part of the show, what we're going to do is update you on some of the key changes that will be happening and how they'll affect you. So please do stay tuned for that. That's a really important part of the show today. Now, you mentioned earlier about county court judgments, CCJs. So if people have a CCJ against them, and I think it's if it's less than 5 years, does that mean they're completely out of the market for setting up a company and
I mean, not 5 years. If you certainly in the last couple of years, then I don't know of many lenders that would lend to you. But there are some lenders that will consider your applicant if it's more than 2 years and you've satisfied it. But the rates will be higher, and they would look into your affairs a bit more closely, and what the CCJ was for, and this and the other. But it's extremely difficult with a CCJ, or if somebody's on a what do you call it, debt management, or has defaulted previously on mortgages or loans or credit cards. So this is going to get worse, where because of the credit crunch situation, they've tightened this up really, where a lot of the adverse lenders are no longer in the market, and they're not prepared to lend to people with adverse credit, with defaults and CCJs.
I'm going to interrupt you there, we'll come back to it, but in the meantime we've got a caller, so let's go to our next caller, please. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. What's your question?
Walaikum. Hi, thank you. I just had a question. Do you think is it a good time to buy property?
Is it a good time to buy property at the moment? Okay, thank you. I mean, I get asked that quite a lot. I mean, it's been last few years, property prices have been going up quite significantly. Now, with all these government changes, it's difficult to answer that question straightforward. Say, look, it's going to be a few months. I mean, there was a lot of panic buying and selling going on in the last few weeks. But hopefully things will stabilize a bit. But the demand is so much out there. I personally cannot see any serious impact on properties in around London, southeast, because of the demand. Now, buying property, if you buy it for long term, you can never go wrong with property, simply because in the UK we believe, or we've seen statistics to say that every 10 years or so, property doubles in price. So in the long term, you cannot. If there is a dip or there's a problem in the market, as long as you're able to hold on to the property for long term, there won't be any problems. Now, whether this gentleman, I don't know if he's referring to buy-to-let or first-time buyer, but certainly for investment property, if you're able to manage your property nicely, you get a good rent, and you're able to hold on if there's difficult periods, then it's absolutely fine. It's investment, that's how you create wealth, and I can't see anything wrong with, long. But if you're thinking, well, I'm going to buy in the next few months and potentially make a serious quick buck that I'm not going to show it's going to happen, because with so much government legislation coming to calm the market down, there may not be that quick increase in prices, and then you may need to hold on to your properties for longer term. But I mean, look, if you're able to hold on where you get a nice rent, and hopefully in the future you get capital growth, then it should be fine.
Okay, well as what's a good time to buy, what are the good areas to buy? That's a critical factor.
I mean, I specialise in around the London suburbs and London, and what it is, I've been tipping most of East London and Barking and Dagenham for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and I have lots of friends and clients who've done quite well out of that, and that's still got some potential, because some parts of it is still because there's Central Line, there's District Line, I believe, goes there. But then I've been also for the last few years been the Crossrail line, and those have gone up quite a lot. But there are still places on the crosses that there's still some potential there. So you need to look at the route or the cross. You know, it goes all the way to Brentwood via Gidea Park, Harold Hill, and into East London and Central London. So that's been a good sort of way to buy. So you need to look at infrastructure where there's potentially regeneration. I mean, Stratford I've been tipping and I've been investing myself, and it's gone amazing. But still, compared to West London and most of other parts, it's still cheap, because you've got the shopping, the transportation hub, the Olympic Stadium, and so that's still. I mean, the capital growth in those areas will be a lot more than your, you know, the outside London, simply because people want to live there because of job opportunities, good transportation links, close to central London. So, you know, those areas I tip all the time. I mean, look, like anything, somebody might not have a budget for Stratford or central London or East London, so you could consider sort of up and coming areas where there's there's an area, I think Grays, I believe there's going to be Marina and a few other things, and people
in Essex.
Essex, a lot of my clients are buying in Rainham, Grays, and these are up and coming. They're still within touching distance of to London. I mean, you can get to central London fairly easily. So those areas have, I mean, it's possible that the capital growth will not be as good as areas close to central London, but they're within some people's budgets.
And also, it's probably a good way of getting, as you say, getting on the property ladder, and then maybe utilising that capital a bit further down the line to start building your property portfolio.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Thamesmead is not a particularly expensive area now, but it just needs a few changes, a bridge or two, or something like that, and it will explode. There's some nice houses there, and you know, as prices go up, the communities change, and you get different caliber of people moving into those areas, and that helps push up prices. So look, somebody might not have a budget for Shoreditch, Stratford, or South Woodford, but certainly you can try some other locations such as Grays and Rainham, for instance, and they are, I mean, they have come up a lot in the last few years as with other areas, but there's still some potential. There's still some deals to be had there in those areas.
Certainly sounds that way. Would you say it's worth, so if someone's really serious about this and they want to do some serious research, is it worth people sort of talking to local authorities, planning departments and things, and finding out what regeneration projects are going to be happening in the area?
Absolutely. I mean, this is why I keep, you know, I go to a lot of the meetings with MPs, councillors, whatever, because they know the local areas and they know what's happening. I mean, I knew what was happening in places like Kenning Town and this and that, simply because I have...
the end of the show?
Interest in going. It's not to become a politician, but simply to you know, speak to different people and see what's going on in those areas. The regeneration.
Is that the end of the show?
Yes. So I go to you know, meetings with politicians, local councillors, whatever, social or non-social, just to see what's happening in those local areas. And they know exactly what's happening in those areas for the next 3, 4, 5 years, because they have an input in what's going on. And so, you know, this is one of the reasons I go, is not to become a politician, but to see, find out more about these areas.
Okay, I think actually we are coming to the end of the show, so could you just really update really briefly what the key changes are going to be, I think in the next 2 minutes or so?
Sure, sure. The key changes as from tomorrow is 3% surcharge on buy-to-let investments. There's also changes in commercial property stamp duties. There's, as from the 5th of April, the changes on the interest tax relief. So it affects higher rate taxpayers. So we need to be aware of that. And then also we need to look out for the new changes with the banks, where they're going to be asking for a lot more higher income from landlords to lend. So yeah, those 3 or 4 major changes I would look out for.
Okay, well, you've done a great job encapsulating all of that information in such a brief kind of with very few words. Would you suggest then people do speak to their broker and go and get some expert advice on this?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I had a few calls last week. People are not aware of this 3%, so you've got to budget that in. If you're buying a house for 300,000, there's potentially another 10,000 to pay. So you've got to budget
on top of
the existing stamp duty.
Okay.
So you know, people need to factor these things in and not get a shock when the solicitor gives you a completion statement. You need to read up on it and work out how much it costs. It's very very easy these days to work out. I mean, you go Google it and you can work out how much.
They have these calculators, even I think on the BBC website, where you can.
This is it. Yeah. I mean, it'd be expensive. For instance, if people want to sell properties between family members and whatever, because you get an extra bill of £10,000-15,000 on top of the existing stamp duty. So it's got to be things have to be planned and done in the correct way.
Yeah, it's certainly going to have an impact, I think, on the property market, and we're kind of coming to that kind of 10-year cycle now, aren't we?
Yes.
We're maybe a couple of years away.
Yes.
Do you think prices might go down, or?
See, I mean, I always look with properties long term. So if there are dips in the along the way, that's part of the business. In like any business, there's risk and downturns. But
London always holds its value.
London always, and the demand's been huge simply because of the population increases, and with the EU referendum, that's going to have a big impact whether we stay in or out. And if we're out, then potentially that could have an impact on tenant demand and potential.
Is that because of European legislation?
That's right. I mean, well, if the Europeans are not allowed to come in, at the moment, a lot of the demand is driven by the Eastern Europeans, the rental demand. And if they're not allowed to enter and we've exited, then that would obviously have an impact on tenant demand. And yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid, once again, the show has just, caught up with us. The time has caught up with us, and we've come to the end of another show. I can't believe it. We had so many more questions. Thank you very much for watching, and do keep watching. Join us next month. We're going to be back, and we will tell you when we're back on air what the next topic will be. But as I said, Cam is an expert on property and finance, so call through with your questions. Thank you very much for watching, and Assalamu alaikum. Stay safe.